From Elden Ring reviews to shattered careers, this story is quite insane. Now yes, this video is about YouTube incompetency, but I'll try to keep it interesting for the uninformed. About a month ago, a YouTuber by the name of Actman released a video covering Elden Ring hot takes. This video basically cataloged and poked fun at some of the crazy takes people had. It was basically a video cataloging maidenless behavior. A creator featured in this video went semi-viral for his bad takes, and his name is Quantum TV. I'll now be calling Quantum TV Mr. Q from now on. That Q is related to another Q that he may or may not allegedly believe in, but I just wanted to point that out. Now, he made many bad faith arguments about the game Elden Ring, and we can obviously discuss these things over on my Twitch channel, but these opinions were things like, the game is too hard, and art direction is bad, and it looks like a last-gen game. Which, you know, I really don't understand the art direction one. That one makes zero sense. I mean, look at how beautiful this art is and how just coherent the world of Elden Ring is. Weird. I don't think he knows what art direction is. For a time, people thought that this would be it, but underneath the surface, Mr. Q had been boiling a brew of hate like some little internet witch. You see, Mr. Q had been abusing the copyright system, taking a shot at the Actman, but before that, he had taken a shot at a smaller creator, a YouTuber named Mischief, a younger gaming creator. Meanwhile, in the TV calibration community, which I didn't know there was a YouTube TV calibration community, but apparently it's out there, Mr. Q for a long time had been discrediting and causing unnecessary hardship amongst TV calibration channels. Generally, a pattern of behavior would emerge where Mr. Q would present himself as an end-all, be-all expert, and then he would discredit any form of criticism by using the tools provided to him by YouTube, his audience, or other social media means. Now, there's a little bit of a Geneva Convention when it comes to YouTube and YouTube drama. There's things you don't do. One of those things is abusing the copyright system. Another one of those would be basically doxing, targeting family members, swatting, targeting means of income. These are things you generally don't do. You just don't do them, even if you're going to be tackling some serious drama and hurting careers. You know, you just don't do it. As Mischief and members of the TV community were on the receiving end of Mr. Q's anger, the Actman published a video chronicling a few of these things. The Actman showed that Mr. Q was breaking guidelines of YouTube and that maybe his platform, according to the Actman, should be taken away. A few of these claims include things like hate speech, ban evasion, copyright system abuse, spreading fake news, and bigotry, as well as tons of other misinformation and other things that I can't catalog here for various reasons. The specifics of this are actually very hard to explain in video because many of these things, if I explained them and disavowed them, would still be cataloged by YouTube as me supporting these things or encouraging these things because I am not traditional media that gets a free pass on describing these things. Keeping it incredibly vague, Mr. Q made statements regarding events that happened at the Pulse nightclub, which, for the unfamiliar, is a similarly tragic event to the events that seem to happen very regularly in America. Mr. Q called for a higher casualty count at this event on the basis of these individuals' sexual identities. Mr. Q's response to the statements is that he was hacked, allegedly. He never disavowed these statements. It should be mentioned that his alleged opinions also align with similar views he has made more recently. Mr. Q, at least in my opinion, presents as someone who is very fundamentalist, very anti-woke culture. Again, it's just my opinion, but I was under the impression that Mr. Q, you know, might have been batting for the other team, or he goes to great lengths to describe to the audience that he is actually very straight. Many of the more dark ideas held by Mr. Q allegedly were explained in greater detail in a follow-up video by the Actman. This follow-up video was titled The Dark Age of YouTube. It mentions in detail how YouTube fumbled an investigation into Mr. Q, has an uneven coverage of its policies, and shows the details of Mr. Q calling the mother of the Actman. This is a call facilitated by a dox to now personally contact the family while making vague, non-specific threats, allegedly. The aftermath of this video was extremely quick, with YouTube responding uncharacteristically fast to this drama. Not at Mr. Q though, at the Actman. The Dark Age of YouTube was found to violate community guidelines on the basis of nudity and sexual content. You see, the video features a picture of Mr. Q, dangerously close to a sexual object of monstrous proportions, a phallically shaped individual object of powerful girth and anger. This object being the famous thing that Rick turned into. A thing known as a pickle. Now, this was the Act-Man's first strike, and warning strikes that YouTube doles out are rarely repealed, and they never take it away. This will last on his account for the entirety of his career. A similar thing happened to me for similar jokes in old unlisted videos. Following that was an alleged mass flagging by Mr. Q's community, though YouTube could be behind this as well, it's hard to say. 2 of Act-Man's videos were age restricted, and within 30 minutes, apparently YouTube had watched an hour-long video. The dark age of YouTube was rejected from its appeal. Before I continue, I stopped my production on other videos to get this out. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you can. This story was too important not to share, and honestly, you know, stuff like the pickle is at least a little funny. No YouTuber wants this platform to play by different rules for different individuals. If one thing we'd all appreciate is even accountability for everybody on the platform, and it seems that we need to enforce that ourselves. So I felt the need to do this video. Support me if you can. Now, after all of this, the Act-Man was made aware that his entire channel would be demonetized, and it was. The reasoning provided by YouTube was because of a clearly signaled joke from the Act-Man on Twitter. Basically, this joke was poking fun at how Mr. Q was able to dox him allegedly, and that YouTube didn't do anything to stop him, but would go out of their way to stop other people who make jokes about it. And it turns out they would. Now, YouTube responded to the Act-Man and they said the following: your YouTube partnership program suspension followed your now deleted tweet threatening to dox the families of YouTube employees and creators. We don't take these decisions lightly and want you to know we're taking your concerns just as seriously. We'll keep working with you directly on this. End quote. YouTube, in regards to Mr. Q, said they can't look into deleted tweets, which is interesting considering that that's how they determined that they would demonetize the entire channel of the Act-Man. Another interesting tidbit about this video is that anybody speaking about it gets immediately sandboxed or demonetized. Key words like the Act-Man's name are apparently cause enough for demonetization. And all of this, for many YouTubers, seems to point to very odd, fishy behavior. And given the world we live in, it's not surprising to say that many people are smelling a conspiracy. Mr. Q, according to his comments on recent videos, says he didn't do anything. Can't win anything if he didn't do anything. But his faithful fans tend to disagree. Comments are heavily moderated to support Mr. Q, and the only reason I have any evidence for this is because of the YouTube dislike extension that I've linked down below. So you can see where the public actually lies on the opinions of Quantum TV. Now, the next part of this video is strictly my opinion and has nothing to do with the events that happened thus far of the current time. Mr. Q deliberately spreads hate, and as someone who grew up Christian, you know, for a godly man, Mr. Q to me doesn't present as someone who is very Christian-like or very godly. He is, in my opinion, filled with hate, the kind of behavior that I don't see Jesus ever being proud of. He brings people into his heart through love, not through hate. But Quantum TV seems to engage very fondly with the ideas of hate and bigotry. Even if there's someone who doesn't worship God or Jesus or whatever, I can't see that kind of God being okay with somebody encouraging the death of people who don't. Which is, you know, sad that we have someone that is kind of in a way representing that community in such a bigoted way, in such a horrible way. But I don't think I need to say it myself. I think I am much better off just quoting the Bible, right? The famous quote, Matthew 7:5, "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye. Then you'll see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." A man like you should be ashamed to call yourself Christian. I have plenty of religious friends, and you're kind of person that they don't want representing their beliefs. Mr. Q is also very afraid of how his identity is presented online. And, you know, usually from my past experiences on the internet, the only people who are very, very afraid of how they are presented to other people usually don't bat exclusively for one team or are trying to repress those feelings. I mean, guys, have you been on 4chan? 4chan's hella based, but for some reason, they hold very positive views of individuals like Astofu. And, you know, I understand why, but I think we all could catch my drift, you know. Another thing I got from watching Mr. Q's videos is that he usually doesn't back up his evidence with anything. He just says he has it, or he just makes rhetorical arguments. Emotionally based mood arguments, really. In my opinion, these arguments are very reminiscent of Onision or Social Repose. The tonality is very similar, but again, that's just my opinion. Taking emotional angles and focusing on the isms and unchangeable identities is an argumentative tactic to move the goalpost of the situation. So both sides are basically arguing about something else entirely, and no sides win. You can see it in Mr. Q's comments. We've reached this cult of personality surrounding Mr. Q, where now his side will argue about things like his identity when, you know, this has been about actions that are controllable, about himself. But no, instead we'll make this something political or something beyond what it actually is. YouTubers and overall the community need to uphold what YouTube won't. This is never about advertisers. People made the argument about that. More specifically, I'd call it a moral panic from traditional media, because we do take a huge slice out of traditional media's pie, and I don't think a lot of them like that. Research is really mixed on this, on whether or not the content you watch in a piece of media will affect how your brain thinks about the advertised portion. This is the basis behind advertiser-friendly content. For example, if you watch a movie and feel bad about it after, are you more or less likely to buy a Coca-Cola that you saw in that movie? Like, let's say if you watch The Joker and they drink a Coke and then you leave, and are you gonna want a Coke after you saw The Joker? Is that gonna still resonate with you? Or will you think bad things about Coca-Cola as a company because of the message of Joker? Now, if media does affect how people respond to ads, why was Applebee's not affected by playing over the bombing of Kiev? Why advertise on the news in between footage of running school children from tragedy? When here on YouTube, a pickle means that you're not going to be able to pay for your rent. This is an incredibly hot take, and I'm being incredibly cagey about how I'm going to give this opinion. But this is not about ads, it never has been. Make no mistake, companies like YouTube and traditional media do play by different rules, even on this platform. You know, they're allowed to be worse than us, generally speaking. The standards media has set for creators is completely uneven and ridiculous, and it's allowed for things like this to happen to creators like the Act Man. And it's time we stop thinking about demonetization as anything other than traditional media trying to stifle and kill the creator economy. Because, I mean, you know, that's just my opinion, but I can definitely see how there's a bit of adversarial engagement between traditional media and YouTubers. And if you like this video, you should check out my one on Social Repose or perhaps Onision. Take care and be well. Social Repose is back, and let me play this clip.
So with all the stuff between Social Repose and Ronnie Radke going on, I thought I should do my story time on how Richie Geese, aka Social Repose, tried to talk to me when I was 15. So I was 15, about to be 16. I turned 16 in November